Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, a show that examines all aspects of sexuality, from physical to emotional to spiritual. Join our hosts as they discuss age-old questions, common misconceptions, and the latest topics surrounding sex. They'll tackle topics about sexuality from the complicated to the hilarious and everything in between. GSMC Sex Podcast is your show for all of your questions about sex, even some you might not have thought of yet.
Hello and welcome to Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast. I'm your host, John Johnson, and I want to share this with you. I am in partnership with Care Of. Now, Care Of is a subscription service that makes it easy to get your vitamins, protein powders, and a whole lot more. And it's all personalized just for you and delivered straight to your door. So here's what you're going to get. I'm going to give you 30% off if you use this Relationship 30 as a promo code. So you go to takecareof.com. That is TAKECAREOF. That's all one word, .com, and enter the promo code of Relationship 30. Now that's going to get you 30% off your order, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that after the first segment. So I'm going to jump right into this. And this is the Sex Podcast. So I'm going to talk about the things we do. Now, this came up because I had a group of people that I talked to on occasion about some of their interests, let's say. And, you know, we just sort of noodle around in a thought process and say, okay, well, what comes up from time to time? And one of the topics that tends to get people in a little bit of hot water if you're not really careful about how you handle this is some people love to film their sexual experience. Now, whether you're using a video camera or you're using it on your cell phone or something like that. Now, we have seen where these kinds of things get people in a lot of trouble because you get somebody that's got a little bit of hate going on and they spread that stuff out on the internet. And, you know, there's obviously a bit of embarrassment / shame that goes along with that because you are in a very vulnerable place and people are viewing this. And we tend to have a very voyeuristic society these days. So when these things get out there, it's not like it's even anything new, but it's just the fact that it's somebody that is, you know, having their business put out there. And, you know, more particular when the people don't want it to be out there. Now, if you're a porn star and you've got your movies out there, you're selling your wares, I mean, obviously you're there to make money. That's by design. But when you have somebody who's in your life and you're sort of having these intimate moments and someone is filming it and it tends to get out there in some, you know, unscrupulous ways, that can be very embarrassing. So I'm going to talk with you a little bit about, okay, if that's something you want to do, that's cool. But you definitely want to put some limits on where this stuff is going to go. And I'm just going to say on the outside, you know, if that is something that you do, you definitely want to be careful about who you're sharing that kind of stuff with. Meaning you don't want to just jump into a relationship with somebody and then the very next day you're just filming things. It's, you know, especially because it can become fairly embarrassing. So you want to be in control of that. And if that's what you enjoy, and then being able to relive that in your own private personal space, you know, stream it to your big screen TV, and you can kind of, you know, be the star of your own show, so to speak. Remember, you can do that, but you want to be careful about how this thing, about what happens to it afterwards. So you certainly want to be in control of this, and you make sure that you and your partner have a really clear understanding. And as it were, if you decide to do this, because you can even be in a long-term relationship and things can go south, but you just hope that somebody's not going to take advantage of the situation and really hate on you and spread that stuff. Now, the only way to prevent something like that from happening is to never do any film in the first place. So that's just coming from the place of, okay, if it never happens, then it'll never happen. But if that's something that you find interesting to you and it makes your sexy time a little more, spicy, then, like I say, you do it with the understanding that anything that you put on film or record on an electronic device like that can possibly get out of control. And, that is when somebody intentionally does it. There are times when you could accidentally ship that stuff to someone you didn't intend to. And I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but it's certainly happened to me where I sent a text message to the wrong person and didn't intend for them to get that information. Well, it was obviously fairly easy to do. And once it was sent, you can't get it back. Now, you can imagine that if you put something on video like that, that's very, say, private and personal, and if you're not exactly sure about how to work that device, you might wind up sending it somewhere that you don't intend to. And when these things get into cyberspace, who knows what happens to it? Yeah, I understand the cloud system and how you send information to the cloud. And when let's say your phone crashes and you want to get it back, well, boom, you can download it back to your phone. You've got it. But I personally can't say that I know enough about what happens in the cloud can other people see it? I mean, I have to imagine that somebody can. Now, whether they're going to find my stuff out of the millions of others that have uploaded things to this cloud, so to speak, I don't know. And I will probably take some more time and disseminate that. But just for the purposes of this podcast and talking about how you want to be careful about what you're doing in that regard, like I say, be careful. But if you want to have some sexy time and have some fun, and you enjoy filming yourself and your partner having a good time, then by all means, if you have consent, then do it. And I'm going to say this just as an aside. If the person that you are filming does not give your consent, there are many places that would consider that a crime. So you don't want to be in the place of filming someone when they did not give their consent. I mean, if this were a movie, they'd have to get authorization. There's consent forms that people sign. Now, I realize this is a lot less formal than something like that. But because it is so vulnerable and is so compromising to the reputation of people if something like that gets out there. So that's another reason for somebody, if somebody thinks that if you've done some filming and you're kind of hating on the person, this is just down the road, don't take the liberty of putting stuff like that out there, because if there is some harm that comes to the person and they didn't give their consent to that, the person that released that could find themselves liable for some criminal behavior. So I'm just using that as a caveat, so to kind of help keep things on even keel and keep everybody honest and on the same page. So remember, you got to get consent, or you don't want to put that, you don't want to put it on film. So just know that. Yeah, another thing is people might want to wonder, why is something like this interesting? And I think it's really just that curiosity we have about ourselves and about how we look on camera. And I think when you do something like this, professionals have it all worked out. You know, they've got lights, they've got cameras, they've got directors, they've got writers, and they take care of all the details, you know, the makeup, the costumes, and so on and so forth. And when something like this is a lot less formal, when people kind of do it in their own living rooms, I think there's a newness to it. There might be an interest in it, but you realize that there's a lot of work to it. Because if you're filming this thing in your own self, if you just kind of set a camera up in the room and you're just sort of watching this thing play out, that's not really interesting, because I think from the perspective of what we know filmmaking to be, it's about certain camera angles and it's about getting the right shot, and that's a lot of work. That's a lot of production. That's not a real private thing that happens. It's a scene. But if you're just doing your own thing at home, it's, don't expect it to be that big cinema quality kind of thing, because it's just going to be very amateurish. But hey, if you're curious as to what you look like on film, then go for it. I think a lot of people find out how unspectacular they look. So that might sort of discourage you from doing it a lot, but just, try it and then delete it. But have fun with it. And remember, it's between you and your lover. So that's just my caveat. Like, I'm going to take a break and I'll be right back. Hi there, this is John from the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast. I want to share something with you. Right now, I'm in partnership with Care Of, and they are a subscription service that makes it easy to get vitamins, protein powders, and a lot more, and it's personalized just for you. And here's this. It's delivered straight to your door. So if you want to spring into a healthy routine, because the winter blues are definitely coming to an end. So it's finally time to get back into a routine that empowers you to feel your healthiest. So give yourself the support this season with a boost. Now, whether you're looking for energy, better sleep, to maintain stress, or something else you need to help you feel your best, Care Of has the products for you. Now, they have an online quiz that lets you know exactly what you need. Care Of's fun online quiz, they asks you about your diet, your health goals, lifestyle choices, and it only takes about 5 minutes to find out your personally scientifically backed recommendation for vitamins, protein powders, and more. Look, this online quiz is now new and it's improved to learn if you are getting enough fiber, protein, and good fats to determine if you can benefit from Care Of's new protein powders. Listen, taking care of your health should be easy and convenient, and it can be really hard to know what vitamins or supplements you should be taking. But Care Of makes it easy to find out what you specifically need. They deliver daily vitamins and supplement packs along with protein and more, and they're all customized to your recommendations. So you're only taking what you really need. Your customized Care Of subscription box gets sent right to your door every month, and it's with personalized daily packs. They're delicious, they're nutrient packed, and they have quick stick powders which can be added to your monthly delivery for an extra easy boost whenever you need it. So I want you to experience the Care Of difference, because Care Of now offers protein powders available in individual packets for on the go and in tubs. All are personalized to your fitness goals and dietary preferences. See, Care Of makes sure that you're getting the vitamins and proteins from the best sources backed by honest guidance and transparency. Care Of's new protein powders have clean labels, and they are made with organic ingredients like cocoa and Himalayan pink sea salt or whey from free-range, grass-fed cows from Ireland. Look, vegan and vegetarian supplement options are available to match your dietary needs. You can also track your progress on the Care Of app and earn rewards when you remember to take your vitamins. So here's what I want you to know. For 30% off your first Care Of order, I want you to go to takecareof, that's one word, takecareof.com. Take Care Of, and in the promo code, I want you to enter relationship 30. That's RELATIONSHIP 30. That's the number 30. Relationship 30. You put that in, you're going to get 30% off your first order from Care Of. Give it a try. I think it'll make a difference for you. Hello and welcome back to Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast. I'm your host, John, and I'm talking about the things we do. Okay, so in that first segment, I was talking about the idea that, some people like to film their encounters. And I was talking about, hey, there's some risks there. Be careful. Be sure it's somebody you trust. Get an understanding about, hey, we're not putting this out on the internet or anything like that. Because once these things get out there, you can't get them back. But I'm going to pivot from that to the idea of, you can have sex at any time. But, okay, before I get there, think about it. If you're a person that records that, hey, you have that for you and your partner to enjoy years down the road. So if you just fast forward 20 years down the road and you still have this film of you and your partner just really having a good time, that for some people is really erotic and it's sexy, and it just kind of gets them like, wow, we were good when we were, back in the day kind of thing. So anyway, I'm just throwing that out there. So, look, sex at any age. I know sometimes we think sex is just for young people. And statistically, they're saying younger people are not having sex as often as, say, maybe a generation before them because they have a lot of other concerns and responsibilities that they have to deal with, like student debt. I remember being a lot younger, and when you're really young, say like a teenager, early 20s, you didn't have privacy. So that prevented a lot of sexual encounters. I mean, yeah, there were people that did it in all kinds of weird, odd places, but those were spur of the moment kind of things, and that was like an opportunity. But I'm talking about those who really have their own place where they can be intimate with their partner and not be disturbed. And I think the reason a lot of younger people are not having sex, when I say younger, in their 20s, early 30s, as often as they did, is because, they're living with their parents, so to speak. And, you just never felt comfortable being under your parents' roof, doing something like that. You kind of wanted to get off into your own private, your own place, your own apartment or home or whatever you had. And then you wouldn't feel so inhibited. But that having been said, if you're an older person, you obviously have your own spot. You can do this whenever you want to, but you may not do it as often because for lots of reasons. Maybe you don't feel inclined to do it because you don't feel like you're sexy enough or something. Well, look, I'm going to put some of that to rest. Older people have just as much going on as they did before. And I think a lot of this is mental. I think if you see yourself for who you are at the place where you are right now, you know yourself better. You're probably a lot more self-assured. And with that should come the confidence that, you don't have the body that you had 10, 15, 20 years ago. A lot of people don't. But that aside, since you're relatively comfortable with who you are, then you can push some of those things to the back of your mind. And sex is a little different when you get older. It's when you're young, you're like a racehorse. At least guys, they're like a racehorse. They have lots of energy, lots of hormones raging, and they feel like they can go on forever. But as guys get a little older, we talking about the how skills or capacity to do things declines with age, and it affects men. You have to kind of change your mind as to what sex is. So it's not always about intercourse. Sometimes it's more about holding it, and it could even be a lot more the conversation. And I think when you're younger, you have this image of sex, and a lot of it is programmed because you're used to seeing porn. So you don't do the communication thing because you just don't realize that that's a part of it. That's kind of how you get interested and kind of get into this thing going. So if that's not part of your repertoire, think about that. Learn how to communicate with your partner. Talk sexy. And for people of an older generation, and I use that in air quotes because I'm not trying to be insulting, then it might feel a little strange to talk about sex because a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. But try, getting out of your comfort zone a little bit and having a conversation with your partner about it, but be playful with it. Just kind of have fun, nibble around the edges, and, try things like oral sex or have a conversation around it or hand holding, be intimate like that in some of the, like the public displays of affection. And that kind of gets things started. I know a number of people who have had to they've had to adjust what they think sex is, meaning the physical part, because face it, when you get older, you've had more opportunities to, say, get injuries. The knees don't work as well, and sometimes they're just aches and pains. But that doesn't mean that you physically don't want to. It just means that you're just going to have to change up how you do things. It may mean the guy being on the bottom for a while. And hey, a lot of hand holding, a lot of snuggling, a lot of cuddling and conversation. So you kind of mix it up a bit. So it's not just about intercourse. And we have to explain that all the time because guys have been wired to think that sex is all about intercourse. And women resist wanting to feel like an object because guys tend to go for it and they go for themselves. But as guys become more in tune with their partner, and conversation helps this. So if you're not used to the conversation part, and it might be a little awkward because you might sound a little uncoordinated with the language, then just imagine having a conversation with your partner. But in and of itself, it's a good thing. You want to learn how to appeal to your partner and not make either one of you feel like an object, but feel like you're somebody that's desirable, that's desired, and, give it a shot. I think it's going to be awkward initially because if you haven't done it before, are you really good at it the first time out? Generally not. But as you practice it, as you learn that, the conversation, what's interesting to your partner, then you get better at it. And that's just, like I say, with practice. Look, I'm going to take a break here and I'll be right back. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more. Stay tuned.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. The guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith.
An all-inclusive look of pop culture. Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, hello, and welcome back to Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast. And in the last segment, I was talking about communicating with your partner and, having a little bit of sexy talk. Look, just, it's worth mentioning that if you are somebody who takes medications, this can affect your libido, which would therefore probably affect your interest in this whole subject. And that's something always to take into consideration. But if you're taking medications and you feel like that is having an effect on your ability to be sexual, then consult your physician. There might be some things that you can do there to get that back for you. And I do hope that having a healthy sex life is important to you and your partner together. That way you can both enjoy each other. Now, something else I'm going to pivot to right now, and I'm doing this as a friend. I was having a conversation with somebody who has been in a long-term relationship, and their sex life is kind of, it doesn't really happen because they've been married a while and they sleep in separate rooms, and that's no big deal. We have a lot of people that sleep in separate quarters because of convenience. If you have a significant other that has a snoring problem or likes to stay up late, and sometimes it's better that they have different sleeping quarters because that way you don't get disturbed, because some people are very sensitive when they get moved. And then if they interrupt their sleep, then everything's just kind of thrown out of cycle. They're going to be grumpy in the day or just can't get rested. And, a lot of us know what lack of rest can do. So, but the question was about, okay, well, how do we get this thing restarted if we haven't been physically intimate for quite a while? And there was a period of time when the two of them were not together. Their marriage went through some issues, but they have managed to come back for the benefit of both of them. And so I kind of made a suggestion, because in this particular case, I said she's going to have to make the first move, because the guy in and of himself, he's a nice guy, but he just sometimes, because men being the way they are, sometimes they don't even think about romance or think about being intimate. And I suggested that, look, if that's something that you want or something that you'd like to get some information on, you're going to have to talk to him, pull him aside and really have that conversation. Obviously, you do it when it's just the two of you. And I wouldn't necessarily make it a heavy topic of conversation, because at least you kind of want to ease into it. There is lots of ways to talk to somebody about sex, but you don't want to feel like they're being ambushed. because when you feel like you're put on the spot, then sometimes the internal thing makes you just sort of shut down, and you feel like you're being given an interview, and you don't know necessarily what the other person is aiming for. So I think if you're the person that needs to have this information, I'm suggesting that you think about how you want to present it. So come out with it first. Say, hey, look, I'd like to rekindle the intimate relationship we've had, and I've noticed that it's sort of dropped off. And let's talk about what's happened, and make it a part of a discussion like that. That way, people don't have to feel defensive. And in this particular case, I suggested that she bring it up because I know something about their history, and I know there's medication that people take that alters for some people, the ability to be sexual. And as I kind of shared a little bit in this podcast, that if you're having issues with your sexuality, and it might be because there's a combination of medications that you're taking, you can talk to your doctor about that. That's something that they have a lot of experience with. But back to the conversation and breaking the ice. And I think this is a thing that really stops a lot of people because they feel a little awkward about it. But think about this. Think about how much, if your partner knew that this was important to you, they would want to know that it's important to you, that you would come and talk to them. Because a lot of us think that our partners can read our minds. I know that when we've been in relationships a long time, sometimes we finish each other's sentences. We sort of know the outcome. It's like knowing how the story is going to end. But I'm suggesting that you can rewrite this. And it's not so much about rewriting your history, but it's about rewriting your future. So to not be what your past has been. Because I don't know if you've heard the expression, your past becomes your future. Well, if you don't do anything about what you're experiencing, then yeah, your past will continue to be something that you already know about. And you just sort of ride off into that sunset without having the intimacy that you want from your partner. And that makes some people ripe for affairs because they want to have the attention from someone, and physical intimacy is important. And it's not just intercourse. Physical intimacy, you can redefine that, because as you get older, then there might be a diminished capacity to have intercourse. But as I've shared, it could be the hugging, it could be the caressing, it could be the hand holding. And that could get things started to where you can be physically intimate. And you may not have thought you had the capacity to do so, but it's nice to rediscover that kind of thing. And I think when you're with somebody that you've been with a long time, you're a lot less inhibited. You're not so much worried about what the bodies look like and things. You're well past that. And it's nice to be able to validate that for your partner. But again, it's back to having the conversation, raise the conversation. And I think you can also slide up on your partner and give them a nice soft little massage or a little squeeze of the hand, and wait for the reaction, or have that talk that, hey, I'd like to hold your hand. Let's go out for a walk. Let's take a short little drive, and do things in a non-threatening way. And that usually encourages the idea that, look, this is going to be okay. Because I know if you haven't had this conversation before, or it's been a long time, then I think people get a little nervous about it. Like I say, they feel awkward. They feel like they're going to be ambushed, or they feel like whatever they're going to say is going to be the wrong thing. And this is just something that happens in guys' minds. I think men are pleasers. They love to be able to have sex and know that they're going to please their partner as much as themselves. But I take it that a lot of times younger guys don't necessarily have that feel for pleasing their partner as much as pleasing themselves. And I think they learn that over time, because it's generally a failure on a man's part to not be able to connect with his partner when he's wired to think like porn stars, that they just go for themselves. But I think men are capable of being a lot smarter about that. And I'd like to educate men and to have them think about this in terms of, think about the future of your partner and the mindset. And the intimacy is, when it's mutually beneficial, it'll be there for you. And in the case here, it's where if we're older and we've been with this partner a long time, like I say, we're a lot less concerned about some of the things as a young man, and I think we really do think about how we can please our partners. So if it's the hand holding and we know that works, we're happy to do it. And it's mutually beneficial, because if you as a man feel like you are really out there trying to appeal to your partner, then I think the reciprocal response is you will feel loved and you're going to feel masculine. You're going to feel like you're desirable and desired. And this sort of lifts, they say a rising tide lifts all boats. This is one of those things where the emotions start to build towards that intimacy. And, sometimes you just can't wait to be close to each other. And that's nice. So just to sort of recap, approach the conversation. Come out of your shell. You're going to have to take a risk with this and talk about wanting intimacy and sharing how you think that this is going to improve the communication between the two of you. That it doesn't have to be an ambush, but the conversation. And, I think it's nice to kind of dress up in something a little different. A lot of times we just get used to looking at each other in house clothes, and that's not sexy at all. So pretty up a little bit. And, the same for guys. Change your wardrobe to appeal to your partner and find out how much of a difference that makes. And I think we all like to feel sexy. We all like to feel pretty, but we have to make an effort at that. If you don't make an effort, then you can't expect to get the feedback of, wow, this is something special. I think you have to make the effort. And given that, when you do that, I think you'll get a response. One that says that, wow, this is nice. I like this. See, guys don't always think about it. When they basically have been in a relationship a long time, and this particular one that I'm talking about, they haven't been physically intimate for a long time. And so that sort of leads to there's this routine of not thinking about it, not caring about it. And you have to bring this, you have to bring it to the table. Don't be afraid of upsetting someone because you have a desire, because like I said, they can't read your mind. So bring it up. And when you do so, do it with the idea that you're going to have a good outcome. I can't tell you how many times I've communicated with people the idea that there's been so much miscommunication that no one was afraid to step out of their box, their comfort zone, and to extend a hand to say, hey, let's change this. Let's do something for us. Just come right out and say, hey, I want to make love to you because I remember how good it felt. I remember how good it feels. I'd like it to feel that way again. Be bold. See what happens. I mean, it's your partner. It's somebody that you've been intimate with in the past. So take a risk. I like that. I like people putting it out there on the line like that because it, go for broke. I mean, what do you have to lose? If you haven't been with your partner in a while, what do you have to lose? Nothing. It's what you want, so go for it. Make it known. I'm John Johnson. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast. I want to thank you for listening.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Sex Podcast.